Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 18. So it is going out today on New Year's Day, okay? We're going out New Year's Day 2021. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that Mr. Peter Lant has got fireworks going off behind him. And he's dressed up beautifully. And what we thought we'd do today, obviously the last two episodes that we've done, last week's one that came out on Christmas Day was all about New Year's resolutions and sort of setting your intention and our views on those and how they work. And the week before that was getting through Christmas, enjoying Christmas, but sort of staying on track and not totally letting the wheels fall off. What we thought we'd do with today's episode, like we did a few weeks back, is highlight one of the hosts of the Health Oddity podcast. Previously, we talked to and about Mr. Paul Bassett from Hounds of Health. There he is doing the, is it called a dab? I don't know. I'm not really, or a bolt, one of those things. And today, what we're going to do is talk to and about Mr. Peter Lant, who is one of the fantastic hosts we have with us today. Now, I first met Peter back in 2015 on the Strong First SFG2, which I was hosting at Unique Results, which was taken by Dan John, which was amazing. So I've known Peter for 5 years now, and but like many people we meet in life, we get to know them, we get on really well, we chat, we see them sort of regularly or semi-regularly, but we never really kind of delve into their past, their dark past, their history, why they are who they are and how they got here today. So that's what we're going to be doing today with Mr. Peter Lant. So first of all, we'll just say hello to Mr. Paul Bassett.
Good day.
Good day. Happy New Year.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And we'll just briefly say hello to Mr. Peter Lant.
Hello.
Yes. So Happy New Year, everybody, and happy 2021. And what we'll probably do then is just let Pete sort of, in his own words, just introduce himself. I know lots of you appreciate his dulcet tones from around the world. We get comments that people like Pete's accent. We do.
Do we?
Chris Denning in Canada. Chris Denning in Canada. One of my clients says he likes your voice. So
like the Beliebers.
Close, yeah. Oh,
you know, like Justin Bieber has his Beliebers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be called.
What would Peter Lant's fans be?
Someone send that in. There's got to be a good
Lanterns or something. I don't know. We'll have to think of it. Okay. So Pete. So if you can let us know, you can. Over to you, mate. Just sort of introduce yourself and have a bit of a chat, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, I'll just start with kind of like what I do now, and then we're going to work backwards from that. But like now, I was, so I train people in Bath, in person, in a park. We were just talking about this before we started, actually, with Paul, especially with all the COVID stuff and everything. It's quite nice doing that because, I just like it. I like training outside. I don't do it outside because I find it easier or anything like that. I like training outside myself because most of us spend a lot of time indoors. So the guys who I train, a lot of them work from home. A lot more of them work from home now, but a lot of them work from home anyway. And they work or they go to business meetings and stuff like that. People mainly be working from home, or they work in offices. So and we get a lot of people who do that and then end up going to a gym, and and just not being outside. So I'm like, right, I like doing that. People are like, what do you do in the winter? I'm from Newcastle. We don't, it's not that cool, especially now. Anyway, have you seen it now as well? Global warming, it doesn't get cold in this country. So so I train people outdoors in Bath. I've got online as well, which is delivered in a totally different way. I've got a bunch of videos and an app for that. It was all previously enveloped in Bath Kettlebell Society, which was because, I love using kettlebells, but over the years, I've learned to like a lot more stuff. I began with kettlebells. That's where it all began. That's where Bath Kettlebell Society came from. But actually, that kind of doesn't encompass everything that we do. So I'm currently going through a process of rebranding it. I've changed it to Peter Lant Training Philosophy at the moment, but that's like a working title. I don't know what it'll be called. It's all branded just under my name, basically, because then I can do whatever I like with it. So, and that's been from working with a guy called Pom Tut, who we know from the industry anyway. And turns out he's good at digital marketing stuff and all of that. So I've been working with him on rebranding that, working out the values of who I am and who the people who I like to work with, and then just creating a group of people who all get on, basically, which is what we're after, which I know is what you guys do as well. So it's fantastic.
Excellent. No, that's great. I mean, Pom's fantastic, isn't he? I mean, we all obviously know a lot of the same people and similar people in the industry because we move in the same kind of circles and we all come into contact with each other, which is great. So how did you, I know that you've kind of come to the industry as a kind of, almost like a career change or a second career, if you like, a kind of pivot, a slightly, slightly later in life sound more,
yeah, I'm old.
How old are you?
More recently, but yeah, what was your previous life like, and kind of what caused you to make the change to what you do now?
Well, I'll start out at uni, right? Because I'll go through that very quickly just so you get a picture of how it goes. So even before uni, I used to do karate when I was a kid. I was never very fit, hated sport in school, tried to avoid it as much as possible. I was rubbish. I never got picked for any teams or anything. I did karate. My brother's 6 years older than me, and I started doing karate because he was doing it. And I did that for a few years. I think I got a blue belt in Wado-Ryu, which is like, purple. Well, anyway, I got to a sort of like a couple below brown, which was fairly decent. But I was never like massively into it or anything like that. And then I discovered drinking and smoking and all of that sort of stuff. So then I went to uni and I tried to join the karate club there. So there was a karate club at uni and I missed the bus, right? I was like 2 minutes late for the bus and it had gone. So, and then the next bus would have got me there like 3/4 of an hour into the session. So there would have been, so it was pointless. And then I didn't go after that. That was in the first week of uni. And then after that, I didn't go. I just sacked it off, which is just bonkers. It's just ridiculous. And then, so then all the way through uni, I did zero sport, nothing. I drank loads, basically it was just drank and smoke. And then that carried on after university as well. So I came out with a decent degree, I got a maths degree and all that sort of stuff.
Where did you go to uni, Pete?
Liverpool. So it was quite a good party town. That was when Cream was massive as well, so we used to be going to like club nights at Cream on a Saturday night and all of that at the Nation. It was just bonkers. It was just ridiculous. And the people I lived with were all like big heavy drinkers as well. Like it was just debauchery. And then when I finished that, I got a job at Northern Electric in Newcastle, who got taken over by a firm by Npower, who were in Swindon. I moved down to Swindon and I was a trader for them. So buying and selling electricity, gas, bits of coal and carbon and all that sort of, all the stuff that you have to do with that. So I was doing that, which was a decent paid job. It was from Swindon, but we used to talk to brokers in London and we used to go out with the brokers in London and get wined and dined and, taken out to Michelin star restaurants and all that sort of stuff. So it was basically like university, but with money, which is a dangerous thing. So I carried on that lifestyle for a long time. And I got the nickname out of all my mates. So there was a bunch of us from Newcastle moved down. They'd just taken over Yorkshire Electric 6 months earlier. So there was a bunch of guys from Yorkshire as well. So a bunch of Northerners descended upon Swindon and just got hammered for the next 5 or 6 years. And I came out with the name. Well, I got given the name Peter Coherent because I used to get so drunk that I couldn't speak. And so that was basically it. At a point after that, I was like, I need to do something about this. I got to sort of like 30, 31, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't live the rest of my life like this because it's not. I'll be dead in 10 years.
You have a health event.
You what? Sorry.
That kind of triggered that, or was it just a natural kind of? Did you just wake up one morning and go, you know what?
Well, it was the trigger. The actual trigger for it was my old man, but it took a while because I was smoked and drinking and all that. My dad smoked for 40 odd years. He started smoking when he was 5 years old. He was born in 1938. Started smoking when he was 5 years old. So he's a big. That's a good question now because he's a big driver for what I do now. So he started smoking when he was 5 years old. He gave up when he was like 48, I think. But he didn't actually really give up. He just told us that he did. And I asked him to give up. I was only like 10 years old and I asked him to give up. But then later on, I started smoking. And he died of lung cancer when he was 65. So in 2004. So a few years after that, I was like, right, I need to sort myself out here because I'm going to go the same way. Because basically, if you say he eventually gave up smoking when he was 50, 15 years later, he was dead. And it was smoking that killed him, basically. He wasn't like the healthiest man in the world at all. And I was there's a picture of me it's probably in about 1978 or something. I was like 2 or 3 years old. And that gives you an idea of how old I am. And it's me wearing my little dungarees. And there's an ashtray there full of tab butts. There's an ashtray there full of tab butts. There's some orange cushions on a brown sofa and all of that. And I'm drinking out of this can of McEwen's Best Scotch at like 3 years old. And they took a picture. They're like, isn't that funny? Look at Peter, and took a picture. There's all this stuff around me. So it's no wonder I grew up smoking and drinking, right? It's like the environment I was in. But so the big driver for all of this, for the reason why I am where I am now, a very potted history, is in 20. So I was working in the financial side of stuff at Npower, or RWE as it was. It was a German firm. And obviously there was the credit crunch and all of that. And it all just it wasn't a nice place to be. And then I got made redundant in 2013. And at that time, that was when I was trying to get fitter as well. So I was 2013, what's that? I was like 35 or something, 35, 36. And I was just starting to learn how to get fitter. So I thought, right, I'm going to have 3 months off. That was in September 2013. I thought I'm going to have 3 months off and I'm going to do a PT course and just learn about this stuff because I want to get fitter. So I did the PT course. I joined a gym. There was a gym at work where I was, so we never had to join a gym. I joined a gym and I saw some PTs doing stuff in there, and I was like, they're just whacking people on treadmills and getting them to do stuff. They don't look like they're doing a lot, So I was like, I'm sure I could do better than that. Little did I know how hard it is and how, difficult it is to motivate people and all that. It's a whole different thing. But so I decided to do a PT course just for myself, just so I could help myself get fitter, because that's what I wanted to do. And I was really struggling because I was a cardio junkie. I was doing half marathons and lots and lots of stuff, like doing as many miles on the rowing machine as I could and all that. I was just trying to burn as many calories as possible, but I was really weak. So yeah, and then basically since then, that's when I decided to make a career change and do what I'm doing now. And it's been a journey on that ever since, of just like seeing people like you guys, meeting you at certifications and, finding out from you where, like, what's good to do in other areas and just learning more stuff.
So it's an interesting point you talk about that in the past, you grew up in an environment in which it was quite acceptable and actually quite funny to live a life of excess, or to as a child, you're obviously surrounded by it with your family. And then when you became a 20-year-old, you're working in an environment which it was the culture. So when you started making that decision that you wanted to take care of yourself, I mean, one of the big challenges people give up smoking, for example, is that they're surrounded by smokers because most of their friends smoke. You know, your environments where you go out and hang out with smokers because you have to go outside to smoke, and you end up talking to smokers, and they become your friends, etc. So what did you have to do in order to protect that or to manage that journey?
Well, mine, this is going to be probably a bit different, but hopefully it resonates with a lot of people, because it was nothing to do with the smoking and drinking. It was all to do with what was going on in my head. Because I finished uni, got a job, then I did the thing of getting an office job, trying to earn as much money as possible, just being stuck on that treadmill. And I wasn't happy with it at all. I was just unhappy. And things happened, not to me when I was a kid, but there was something happened to the generation before me within my family, let's say, which I was made aware about when I was about 15 years old. And it had a big knock-on effect with me for years, right? So I was a very closed person, didn't like to talk about emotions or anything like that. And basically, so I just hid everything. I just drank through it and smoked through it. I just had all these things to put a patch on, which a lot of people resonate with, I think, just to put a patch on what I wasn't facing up to. And then when I got the job, it made me feel good, because I was like, it felt like I'd kind of achieved something and I'd made it, and by the time I was 30, I was like, look at me, I've got a decent car and I've got a nice flat and all of that. And I wasn't married then, but I had a beautiful girlfriend and all that. We eventually got married, and then that all went south because of the same sort of reasons. But what I was doing was trying to get the next thing, earn a bit more money, get a nice wife, get this, get that. What I was actually doing was avoiding the actual real issues that I had to then go back. So the smoking and drinking came from that. So then I had to go back through and go right back to the beginning and say, right, who the hell are you? Who are you? Because I became this person, and I was like, I don't even know who I am.
But a lot of people experience that.
Yeah.
But don't do anything about it.
A lot of people will call that a midlife crisis, right? Like when that actually does happen. But what I did, and I joined a program, this guy called Paul Mort, who you guys might be aware of. People might be aware of him, and he's not everyone's cup of tea, right? But at the time, he resonated with me. And I joined his program, which was called Unstoppable Bastards, which is just a funny name, isn't it? I've still got a wallet, actually. Oh, you can't see that because of the thing.
Yeah.
Unstoppable Bastards wallet. But no, it sounds ridiculous, but it was a great program. It was basically a mindset program of, just finding out who the hell you are, just taking it all, stripping it all back. And it all went back to like who I wanted to be when I was like 16 years old, when I I didn't have many cares in the world. And my values were different, and I was just like, I just like to have fun and want to be me, not necessarily like the partying and all that, but just have fun and be myself. But I became a product of the people who I worked with and my wife and all of that. And I like to have a joke and a bit of a laugh around, but it used to be things I'd say. It's like, I'd just say some like stupid things, and I'd get I'd get a sideways look from like family or friends or whatever, look at me like, you can't say that, or you can't do that. And, and I was just like, it started to affect me in the way that like I just started to become insular and just keep out of people's way.
So you kind of like you had a side of your personality that really you didn't really have anyone to communicate that side of your personality with, or was it just it was an environment in which it wasn't valued?
It's I don't know. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to say, but I think I was basically just ended up surrounded by people who didn't have the same or had like values that I like thought I should have and I should adhere to, when actually, and we were talking about this just before, James, and you said like we'll get to that eventually and everything, but like, the values I'm now looking at for the change of brand that I'm going to have and everything like that are the values that I had when I was a kid, because it was just about enjoying yourself and having fun and just being you, being the person who you want to be. And like I said about the midlife crisis thing, people think that's what people call, everyone goes through it, even if they think they don't, but that's what people call the time when you kind of wake up and like eventually you're like, right, hang on, I was 15, now I'm 44. And I've, I haven't got any kids, but like, you might have had a couple of kids. You got married, had a couple of kids, you've had a job. All of a sudden, it's like, God, remember, I used to play bass and I used to love doing that. I don't do that anymore. And this was part of the program that I did, which was the mindset program, and it was kind of, well, what do you do for fun? And I couldn't remember. I was like, I don't do anything for fun. I work, I drink, and and then at the weekends, I'm just tired and I don't do much. And then all of a sudden, I work to get to the weekend to then try and get through the weekend and then dread Monday. And that was it was that cycle. And
it's quite common with a lot of guys. I mean, I used to live up north, and there'd be loads of guys and they have a lot of cash in their pocket in the week. They spend it at the weekend, 500 quid on booze and drugs and partying. And they've just been in this cycle where they recover by about Wednesday and gear themselves up for the weekend again. And in between was just kind of like this weird vicious cycle, and it had massive effect on a lot of people's mental health,
Hugely, yeah. I used to spend days, when I first moved down to Swindon, there was some days I used to live with a lad called Stuart, and if he was away for the weekend, say he'd gone to visit some mates or something like that, there was some weekends I'd just stay in the flat on my own all weekend. And there was times when someone had come and knocked at the door and there was a little video thing and I could see who it was. And I was like, I'm just not answering that. I want to be on my own this weekend, and there was like some Sundays I'd just spend the whole day in bed because I'd go out and get hammered on Friday night and then Saturday night. And I'd just spend all day. I'd literally wouldn't get up Monday morning and go to work. And it was like, that was kind of normal. I'd do that twice a month. 2 weekends a month, I'd be like that. And it was just, and eventually, like I say, I got to a certain point, especially after I got made redundant as well, because that had a big impact. It felt good because I didn't enjoy my job at the time. I did in the beginning, but then when this was the other thing, when it got hard and it was more of a struggle, I didn't enjoy it. So I was like, right, what can I do next? So I got made redundant, which was like a big weight lifted off my shoulders. But that was another place I used to be, was like, if stuff got hard, I'd just go and do something else.
But is that because they didn't reflect your values? It didn't reflect who you were?
Nah, not at all. Whereas now it's like, if stuff's a struggle, it's like, right, brilliant. There's a reason for that. And what you're going to get out of it. And like I think we talked about last week, didn't we? Yeah, because you asked the question last week, what's been your biggest failure in 2020 and all that? And we said, like, well, we don't really necessarily look at failures. We look at stuff that we haven't necessarily done the way we wanted to do. How can we learn from that and turn it into something that we do want to do? So that's where that kind of, that was the big shift for me after being made redundant. And it ultimately, it meant the end of my marriage and all of that. But I had to face up to that and I just had to get through it. And actually now it's made me a much stronger person now than I ever was. But it's been a massive journey. It's been a huge struggle as well. And when I started doing it, it feels like you've opened this Pandora's box. You're like, right, I'm going to deal with this. And then from dealing with that comes this, and then all of a sudden you've got all this stuff and you're like, whoa, hang on. I want to go back in my box. Like at one point I was like, I want to go back in my box. I'll just go and get an office job and I'll carry on. And I'll just do that until the day I die. And then it was like, actually, do I really want that? And like, some people do, and that's absolutely fine. But I was just like, nah, I don't want to be that person.
So given things, sorry, so I was just, I think there's two things you've spoke about there, which probably lots of people will relate to. And if they don't relate to it themselves, we'll see people around them relating to it is the idea of that kind of being caught almost in, like you said, on a treadmill or like in the rat race, of constantly needing to, get a better job effectively, which means, earn more money to get a better house, to pay for more things, to kind of keep up with the Joneses, as it were, to really just to follow society's broad markers of success, and I think so many people fall into that from their early 20s, and like you say, never get out of it really for the whole life. And the other thing is this idea of almost wishing away 75% of your life to get to the weekend, and almost like Monday morning, come on, hurry up, let's get to Friday, and you're literally just wishing away 3/4 of your life for that. And I think that's really like Paul said, the fact that you recognized that and did something about it. Because I think lots and lots of people are in that situation. They recognize they're in that situation, but it's the bravery to change. And maybe, like you said, you were made redundant. You were forced to reassess. And I think if, you know, when you're in that comfortable kind of rat race and you're living to pay the bills and you've got a mortgage and all the rest of it, it's so difficult to actually step back, isn't it, and come out of that.
Massively. But the thing I had, the other thing I had as well. So I was, what was I when I got made redundant? Like I said, 35 or whatever it was. At 35, right? I was driving, not at the time, but before that. So when was it? Probably when I was about 28, right? I was driving a drop top Mercedes and, I was earning a lot of money. I was getting paid bonus and all that sort of stuff. So all of that was there. And I was like, right, what happens next? By the time I got to 35, I was like, as far as all that went, I'd achieved all of like everything that you should achieve. And I was like, so I'm 30, so that's it. Is my life over at 35? I mean, it's like, so what do I do now? How do I keep that move? Like, what do I do next? And the next thing, like Paul just said, is, well, you get promoted or you go and do this. And there was guys where I was working who'd been there since before I was born. They'd been there for like 38 years. And I was like, sod that. I don't want to be sitting in office for 38 years. And then, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but I didn't want that. And it was kind of like, sorry, I'm just going to shut the door. I got sidetracked there because Sean's just come home. It's kind of like, I've forgotten where I was now, but it was, oh yeah, that was it. So yeah, it's just get promotion into jobs or into something that I just didn't want. I didn't want the responsibility because I didn't really care about what I was doing. And the other thing about that actually is what you've just said is getting promoted up and up and up and up. You get promoted, and I don't like the name of this principle, but it's called the Peter principle. To get promoted, everyone, most people within companies and organizations that get promoted to the level of incompetence. Because when you're really good at your job, you get promoted to the next level. Or you're really good at that one, you get promoted to so you keep getting promoted until you find something that you're not very good at. And then they go, all right, you can't go any higher than that. And it's like, well, so therefore you should go one step down and just do what you're really good at. But if everyone gets promoted to the step above where they're good, it's not a good place to be. And there was a lot of that about as well. And also in the job, it was very competitive and I never felt good enough. And I always felt like I was bottom of the pile for some reason. And I may have been, I may not have been, but again, that was what I was telling myself. So the whole thing was just like this comes from the question Paul asked earlier of what was the change? What made you stop drinking and smoking and all that? It was up there. It was all in my head. And I had to change the way I thought about things to make it all make sense.
So do you think, given that you've changed your company name or you're starting to play with an idea of a new kind of business identity, Peter Lant philosophy, then would you say you've got to the point now where you think you've been able to pull those disparate strands together and create something coherent from where in the past there was no coherence?
Yes, that's the point. So what I was doing was like, especially when I set it up the way I set it up in the beginning with Bath Kettlebell Society, that was like, I'm going to use kettlebells and that's it. And I'm going to train you with those. But actually, this whole philosophy was behind that. So that doesn't actually say that, So what'll happen with the new brand? I don't know how it's going to go. I'm still working with Pom on it, but I don't know how that's going to work yet. But it's all just based on the values. What do you value? What do you want the people who come and work with you to value? Everyone's got to fit in. Everyone's got to come in. Not everyone's got to be a certain type of person, but everyone's got to come in and slot in and get on with everyone else and make it nice and smooth, and everyone builds everyone and all of that,
So coming up with the Bath Kettlebell Society, you're really just defining yourself by the tool that you use, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
And really where you're going now is, the kettlebell is a tool that I use, but why do I use that tool and how do I use that tool and why am I drawn to that tool? And I also use other tools. And, so like you say, it's far more about you and your training and your philosophy and all the things around it. It's far more than just, if you want to use kettlebells, come to me, because it's, most people have never used a kettlebell in their life, and they're not going out there searching for somewhere to use a kettlebell, are they? They're going out there searching for somewhere to belong, or someone who speaks to them, or
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think most people, like all the stuff I've just talked about, and I think most people, I say that a lot. I don't think most people, that's a generalization, right? And I might be wrong, but a lot of people think I want to get fitter, but what they mean is I'm not happy with something. I need to sort something out, and getting fitter is going to do it. And then they go and get fitter, and they go, "Oh, it's not that. Then what was it?" And it's basically a lot of things. It's everything. It's getting your life in balance, I think, because if you've let your fitness go, you're probably working too hard or whatever. And it's just getting all of that in balance. And it's fine being able to focus on one thing at once. I was talking about this the other day with one of my online people. And it's, you've got like your fitness and your job and your family life and what you do for fun and who you are, how you keep yourself going. And they're all on a level. And you can focus on one. You can spend more time on this than all the others, but all the others will start to drop off. So if you do that for too long, you end up here. So you've got to kind of I'm going to focus on this for a couple of months because I work on my fitness. Right. Now that's up. That's fine. Now I'm going to go back and spend more time with my family and spend a bit less time at work or whatever. And it's like a graphic equalizer, Paul.
I was just going to say, it's like a graphic equalizer.
Yeah.
I just want to say that. Yeah.
And if you can keep all of those things, have you ever, there's a thing you can do with a stick. Get a bunch of people. This might be good to do with you guys, actually. Get a bunch of people with a stick and everyone has it like that on their fingers, right? A long stick, and there's like 5, 6, 7 people in a row like that. And what you've got to do is get the stick to the floor, right? Without anyone's finger leaving it. Okay? So it's all about communication with the other one, right? So everyone starts to think they're going down, but someone's finger comes off. And what ends up happening is the stick starts to rise, right? Because people are like, no, your fingers come down, you have to push it back up again. So everyone's now ended up pushing up. So they're going in the wrong direction, and that's what can happen. You start to try and think of here's what I want. I'm going to work on this. And if you start getting it wrong, it goes in the wrong direction. So if you start working on everything at the same time, it'll all start moving the wrong way. Whereas if you concentrate on one, that'll move up, another one might move down. But eventually, in little increments, it all starts going in the right direction. And that's what we were talking about. We're talking about that with training all the time, training the 70-80% zone, and then your 100% goes up. I mean, you're big on this, Paul, with Paul McElroy, right? That's what he's all about. Just expand your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is here. So if you're training to the highest level of it all the time, you're just going to burn out. Whereas if you train within it, you just expand it and your 100% becomes bigger and you become, and that's, lots of people who were followed, like Dan John and like Paul Moore helped me out with this. I look at Paul Walkowinski, the Indian clubs guy, he's in his 70s and he's been doing it for 30 years. And, it's all this stuff, all these people who've been doing it for 30 years or, in Dan John's case, he's been lifting weights since 1965 or whatever he said. It's just keep turning up and doing it every single day, or doing something every single day to push that boundary, or to nudge that boundary up. And then you learn stuff along the way. So I'm doing stuff now that I never even planned on doing 5 years ago. It's just because it shows up, and then it's I've created this lifestyle where I can do. I've got space. So that was the other thing where you say people are working really hard, long hours and all that. And I was doing that, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. What else do you want to do? I don't know, because I haven't got time to think about it. And then when I got made redundant, it was like, there's this space. What are you going to do? So that's
we spoke about it before, haven't we? We spoke about it quite a lot on this podcast because we started doing this fairly near the start, I think, of the first lockdown, didn't we? Was it around or in the lockdown?
No, it was in the lockdown, yeah.
In the first lockdown, yeah. So that, like you said, having that space and that we've spoken about this numerous times, that actually that gave people space, didn't it? In the same way that you were made redundant, you suddenly had space. The lockdown, I think, has given throughout this. I mean, this year has been in an on-off lockdown, really, hasn't it, since March? But it's given people space,
Yeah.
Which is what
space can do two things. You could be like, those musicians who spend 10 years on the road and then they suddenly get 3 months off and take drugs. It's an overdose or something. So it's like, how you use that space is you've got to have a very good driving reason. I mean, because you're made redundant, but you push that energy in the right direction.
Yeah. Now the old me from 10 years previous is that if that had happened, I'd have just gone straight out and got another job somewhere else and been like, right, back on the treadmill. But because I had the benefit of like a bit more life experience, I was like, right, do you know what? And I actually looked at it, I was just like, I'm not happy. I'm not happy and I'm going to do something about it rather than drink through it.
Was everyone supportive?
No, not really. Not in the beginning, because it was kind of like, look, you've got yourself to a position in where you were. Now you're going to go and, and especially becoming a PT as well. For some reason, it's kind of like people think it's a hobby. It's kind of like, all right, you're just going to do that just for a laugh, just something to do, right? And, and it wasn't like people were being nasty. They just didn't understand it. And they were like, oh, it's Peter, and because of the way I'd previously been as well. Oh, it's Peter. You'll get sick of it after a couple of months and you'll go and do something else. And I was like, no, I'm not.
I had a good example of that. I was at a wedding once, and I just had a band signed to Sony Records, and I was at this wedding, and I said, and this guy came up to me and said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm managing artists and musicians." He said, "Oh, so you're unemployed then?" So, it's people have preconceptions, over what things are, what a proper job is, or what something of value is, and it's difficult to. Particularly when you take a different route from what everyone expected, to express that value, because you've obviously gone through that process yourself and you've come to conclusions. And the reason you chose that path as opposed to anything else, could have become a carpenter, you could have done something else, because it was in line with values that perhaps other people didn't share or hadn't come to their own conclusions about.
Exactly. But also the thing like it again, this was in my head, this was my problem. But in the beginning as well, I remember there was one, I was at a christening and I was just talking to some people and they were like, they'd kind of known me for a couple of years. These were like friends of my ex-wife, and they were, it was like her parents, I think. And they were saying, so what do you do now then? And I was like, oh, I'm PT and blah, blah, and all this. And they were like, oh, right. And then the amount of people who've then got advice for you, what you should do is target golfers. Because at my golf club, everyone's like wants a bigger swing and all that. And I'm like, brilliant. I know now about golf. I've got I've only just started in PT. I don't know what I'm doing. Someone else what you want to do, right? This was another guy in Bath. I was going to a rugby match and it was a big rugby guy telling, there's a bloke I know, he's got like a bunch of trampolines and he goes down the park and he's got this like bounce fit or whatever the hell he called it. And they're like, he's got loads of people bouncing around on trampolines and everything. He's like, he's doing really well. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to last. That's going to be around in 20 years, isn't it? You know what I mean? I was like, well, thanks for that. What, you want me to build a business around people jumping around on track? Like, no. You know what I mean? It's like everyone is like, here's what you should do. And I'm like, well, that's lovely. Thank you. I'm going to go, which is why we're here, because I've met you guys along the way, going to places and learning from people who know what they're talking about and have done this.
We all met at the Thigh Master, sir, didn't we?
I thought it was the 6.
You can't see because of the thing. My thighs are strong.
He's like, what's it?
I thought it was the 6-minute abs seminar.
Yeah, what an ab every minute. There's one.
Anyway,
that's it.
Well, Pete, it's been fantastic hearing a little bit more about you. And I mean, obviously, I've known you, like I say, for 5 years, and we've never. I suppose it's because that's what blokes do, isn't it? We see each other every now and then, and we have dinner or something, and you just kind of talk about what's going on at the moment. But we never you don't really sit down and say, so tell me about your childhood.
Well, imagine that. If you sit down, what's your arm? Peter, how are you doing? You sit at a wedding or something like that, and they go, oh, so what do you do? And go, oh, well, let me just take you back. They're just going to sit there and go, oh, I've got to go and talk to someone over there. Sorry.
No, it's fantastic to hear about it. I did just have one question. So when you decided to, you made this decision that you wanted to become more healthy, before you decided you were going to make it a career and things, it sounds to me like, sort of similar to me, I suppose, you didn't really have sort of role models growing up within your family who were active, healthy, strong, fit, training, exercising, and that sort of thing. So did you have, a role model when you started to want to become, when you wanted to change, or what was, what kind of, when you made that decision, where did you look for inspirational guidance initially?
I don't know. That's a funny one, that one, because I started out not knowing anything, not knowing who knew anything. It's the thing of like you Google stuff and look around and you're like, does he know what he's talking? He looks like he knows it. Does he know what he's talking about? So I just bought a lot of books and just did a lot of research, kind of like what Paul said, became geeky about it. And then I found, so there was a lad who used to be a personal trainer in Bath who set up a company training trainers. So that's who I got trained from. A guy called Chris Rogers, who used to use kettlebells a lot. So that got me into using kettlebells. Then I found Pat Flynn online and I was like, he seems to know what he's talking about. He was quite funny and he's a decent fella and all that sort of stuff. Then he got me onto Dan John. So I was following those two. I'm still following Pat Flynn. I think he's great. He's hilarious.
Yeah, Pat Flynn.
That's good stuff.
And it was kind of, and I liked his kind of philosophy on stuff. You what? Sorry?
We should get him on.
We should try, yeah. Well, I'll give him a shout out now, you see. And if we get Dan John on,
it'll make you feel guilty if he doesn't turn up.
He's got hair like I used to have as well, because he used to have hair down to the arse. He's got that. But anyway, so I started following him, and that got me onto, and I saw he was an RKC. So then I was like, that looks good. How do I get to be one of those? And so I Googled it and had a look, and I found Pete Luffman, who's in Bristol, so just up the road from me.
Yeah. And
I sent him a message on Facebook, I think, and I was like, you're an RKC. How do I become one of those? Because it looks like you've got to go to the States and all that. And he said, there's this was in 2014, August 2014 this was. And he said, it's not RKC anymore. It's Strong First. It's really good. I recommend you do it. There's a level 1 in November. So I was like, okay. So I started training for that. I basically booked it and just like, right. I was using 2 16s at the time, and you had to pass using 2 24s. And I only weighed 63 kilos at the time as well. So I was like, so that it's all different now, but it was 2 24 bells you had to do everything with. And if you were above 60 kilos, you used the 24s. Now it's 68 kilos or something like that, and it's only 1 bell. But so I had 3 months to train for it, and I did. And then I got through it. And so then after that, that's when I met like you guys and other people through Strong First and through like following like lots of other people online, basically, and starting to filter out who actually knows what they're talking about. And not just necessarily people saying, right, here's a kettlebell, here's how to use a kettlebell. It's like, here's a kettlebell and here's the principles behind everything that I do to use it, which is where I'm now think I'm at. Is right, I understand it all, but I understand the principles behind it, so therefore you can do anything. It's all transferable skills. Even not transferable just between modalities of training, between kettlebell and barbell and body weight and maces and clubs and all of that. It's transferable to everything else in life as well. So running businesses and spending time with family and all of that. It's like, it's just all transferable. Which is why it's good to get the guys who are trained, who are basically busy, but not even necessarily out of shape. They're just lost. They don't want to join a gym. That's basically our target. People who just don't want to join a gym. So they want to go, they go running or something like that, or cycling or whatever, but they haven't got the time to spend to actually do that because they're actually already probably quite fit. So they need to do like 3 hours of time to be able to actually get any benefit from it. Or they get sore knees and sore hips and all that from sitting down. I've seen that a lot through lockdown as well. A lot of people are getting sore joints just from sitting down more. So there you go.
Excellent. Well, that's fantastic, and thanks for sharing everything. That's been really interesting, and I look forward to seeing, you know, the new branding and the new kind of direction and how it sort of unfolds and how it moves on in the next sort of few months, which will be great. Do you have anything you'd like to ask or add, Paul, or are you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we could go on for even longer if we you know, because they've got plenty of questions. I mean.
Well, I haven't told you about my life until I was 15 yet.
Well, yeah. It's going to be like The Hobbit. We're turning into 3 films.
No, because they were all shit.
All that Star Wars. You got the original trilogy, then you've got the prequel trilogy, then you've got the later trilogy. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No. I mean, you came to a kind of certain level of awareness at roughly the same time I did, really. You know,
I think the same time as a lot of people, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, it's a life thing, isn't it? It's like there's certain stages in life where, you know, so someone listening to this in their 60s, they'll be thinking, yeah, I went through that, and now they're at a different stage. It's that thing I said ages ago. I think that you mentioned the Dick Van Dyke thing afterwards. In your 20s, you're worried about
what people think about you.
What people think about you. In your 40s, you stop worrying about what people think about you. And then in your 60s, you realise no one was thinking about you anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
I suppose the final thing is just like, you train mainly guys, don't you, Ben?
Yeah. That was just because I got told that for marketing purposes. Like, you can't talk to everybody. So, you know, it's hard to talk to men and women and all different ages because they've all got different wants and needs and all that. So I just picked blokes my age who are basically where I was at. So I'm talking to myself like 7 years ago. That's basically what it is. But the thing from that is every year that I move on, I can start. It's got a bit make. This is why I need to do the rebranding thing and get myself back into what my values are, because I've started to talk to people saying, right, you can start out from where I was 7 years ago, but then also to people who are like, right, you've already got quite strong in that, but you can take it to a whole different level here. You know what I mean? Because I've got the benefit of that experience now. So like, I'll have made those mistakes. I could stop people making mistakes in the very beginning for the first couple of years, in my first couple of years. But now, you know, 5 years down the line, I can stop people making those mistakes from 3 years into, you know, so it's a continuous process. So in the future, this is when people have been saying, you know, what are you going to be doing when you're 60? Are you going to be like outside in the park training people? Yeah, I'll be out there teaching them how to stop making the mistakes that I made in my 50s and in my 60s and all of that. It's the way to go, you know.
That's it.
Excellent. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. It is New Year's Day today. We are recording this on Christmas Eve. That's why we're.
Oh, you've given away all of our secrets.
I know. We're recording this on Christmas
Eve.
It's not live. No,
we're here live on New Year's Day.
Well, we were live last week at 3 p.m. on Christmas Day.
Yeah, and we beat Liz in the ratings as well.
Okay. So what we're going to do this year, obviously 2021, we're going to try and line up lots of guests. We just mentioned Pat Flynn there. We've got lots of guests to line up for the coming.
Has he agreed?
He's already agreed. We've got the
contract. He just texted you, has he? Yeah, come on, yeah.
So we will get that sorted out. But, you know, we're going to get loads of guests on, and it's just really good to want to thank everyone for listening. Please, whichever platform you listen to us on, subscribe to us. You know, find us on Instagram at Health Oddity. Give us a follow on there. Find us on Facebook, Health Oddity on Facebook. Give us a like or a follow on there. And then, like you say, subscribe to whichever platform you prefer to listen to us, to help us get up the ratings and to help spread ourselves more widely. So would you like to say Happy New Year and goodbye, Mr. Paul Bassett?
Happy New Year and goodbye. Have a great 2021.
Would you like to say Happy New Year and goodbye, Mr. Peter Lant?
I would do. Happy New Year. And James has just said we're going to try and spread ourselves more widely. That's the Thigh Master coming in again. We've got experience.
Okay.
Happy New Year. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you all.
And Happy New Year, guys. And we will see you again next week. Thanks for listening. And here's to a absolutely fabulous 2021. Take care. See you later.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.